Welcome to another episode of the Walks March Madness series presented by East Tennessee realtor Courtney McGee. Today's episode is with Tennessee guard Grant Hurst from Cleveland, Tennessee. He started his college basketball career at UT Martin, but was presented an opportunity to transfer and walk on at the University of Tennessee. He's been a Vol fan for his life, and his story is profound. I'm excited for you guys to hear it. Enjoy the show. Today we are so pleased to be joined by Tennessee guard Grant Hurst. Thanks so much for joining today, Grant.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's pretty good timing, man. I'm not gonna lie, because Tennessee basketball program looking pretty good right now. It's looking pretty good, and I'm an Ohio guy, so I'm kind of just like I've just been kind of looking afar throughout the year, and just things are trending really well for you guys. You guys have looked just great, especially last night against Alabama. But what's it called, Grant? Yeah. So the first thing I want to ask you is, can you speak a little bit to like the culture here at Tennessee and just like what's it like going to school at the University of Tennessee?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, I feel like we're truly player-led. We have a lot of guys that have been here for some years now, been under the program, Coach Barnes, and truly get what it means to win in March. And I feel like that translates not only when it matters most, but in summer, preseason, and then, through the ebbs and flows of the year, that leadership definitely comes out.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it seems like the team just really growing through that. And, what better stride than right here at the end of the year. And when it comes to like the culture here, obviously like player-led, that I'm sure it's getting a lot of excitement around campus, around the basketball program. How have you felt? How have you seen that, I'd say, through campus of just like the excitement around the team?
You definitely get to see it whenever, me and my teammates will walk around just even on weekends and go into restaurants and people are just asking for pictures, simple things like that, or even just, fist bumps or high fives at church. Like, hey, man, it was a great game last night. Of course, with what happened with Jemai hitting that game winner, that was just surreal, to say the least. But I would say the vibe just around this university with sports has just been absolutely electric this year, and hopefully that will only continue to grow.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not from around here, but man, I just hear so much about the like tradition, just all the amazing, just like I always think about what's the Vol Walk? Like, what actually is that? Like, I'm curious.
The Vol Walk is basically where all the fans get there. Lord knows, 4 hours maybe before the game actually kicks off, as the players are like entering into the stadium. So there's a thing called Circle Park where the buses drop the guys off for football games, and then they walk down, I believe it's Neyland Drive, and they are surrounded by the fan base. Depending on the game, there could be a few thousand or a whole even bigger crowds. And they just walk down into the stadium and give everybody high fives. And I can remember as a little kid doing that and being like, Dad, I touched, such and such hand, just as a little kid. Being a part of that was special, and that is honestly a big reason why I am as big as a fan I am today. But not only that, being a part of it is really cool.
Yeah, and so you said so you grew up in Tennessee, Southern Tennessee, right? And Cleveland, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And
we call it East Tennessee.
East Tennessee. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I gotta learn the geography around here.
Tennessee's long. Ohio's taller.
That's so true. Okay, so Eastern Tennessee is where you grew up, and so you grew up going to some of the football games, going to basketball games.
Oh yeah.
So did you always have this dream of man, dude, I want to be a volunteer one day? Did it even sit in that you could be?
It really didn't. If I'm being honest. And I honestly, looking back now on it, I wish I would have, because, as a kid, I did chase my dreams of playing basketball, at the highest level I could. And, of course, achieving that is definitely unique. So I think that in hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back on it now, I'm so grateful. I literally was sitting during the game yesterday. I was like, how am I here right now? And just, taking a moment to reflect and just being grateful for just the scenario and the situation the Lord's put me in. I'm truly blessed, and I feel like I try to, remind myself of that as much as possible.
Yeah, and so in high school, did you like win some state championships, or like did you win any state championships?
I didn't win any state championships, but the year, I'm not gonna say like sit here what if it, but the year that COVID happened and like shut everything down, we were 33-1. We were the number 1 team in the state for basically the entire year. But we had Mr. Basketball on our team, myself, and then 2 other guys who went and played college ball that were juniors and seniors, and we had some young guys who also went and played. So we had a really good team. But I never won a state championship, but I won. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and flex a district or region championship, but we won a lot of those too. So.
And so, like, as a high school player, when it came to like thinking about the next level for college basketball, what did you kind of have your eyes set on? Like, what were those opportunities that presented themselves, and like what did you ultimately do?
So out of high school, COVID struck my junior year, like I mentioned before, and it turned down a lot of options that were heading my way. And it was an odd time in sports. I wasn't allowed to take official visits. I was literally on campuses Zooming coaches, not allowed to even meet them in person because of NCAA rules and the craziness of all that. But I ultimately ended up going to UT Martin, which is a small low major school out in West Tennessee. And I stayed there for 2 years, and then I entered the portal, and I ultimately got the opportunity to come here.
Yeah, so what kind of transcribed to like for that transition from UT Martin like to Tennessee? Like what kind of started to make that happen?
Well, I was looking for honestly to be closer to home, and the day that I was going to commit to a different school, one of our assistants, Rod Clark, called me, and you know, that's honestly probably one of the bigger God moments I have had in my life, and I'll explain that here. So I was sitting in my car, and I got a phone call, and it said like unknown number at the top, and it said like potential like Roderick Clark, and I was like, that name sounds so familiar, you know. So I immediately get on Twitter and I type in Rod Clark, and it says men's basketball assistant, University of Tennessee, and I'm sitting here thinking, what in the world? I was like, there's no way this is Rod Clark. So I, slide to answer, and I accept the call, and it's him. And, he's like, Grant, what's up? Rod's like super chill, super calm. And he's like, yo, what's up, man? Da, da, da. Like, I've been talking to some people about you, and, we'd like to offer you an opportunity to become a walk-on at the University of Tennessee. And I was like, honestly, like, at a loss of words. Like, it hit me so out of left field. I was like, I can remember like catching myself like mumbling and stuttering a whole lot, and I typically don't do that. And I can just remember, oh my gosh, I just like sounded so dumb. But what a moment for me, because hours after that phone call, I was going to commit to a local Division II school, Lee University. And for me, like I mentioned earlier, hindsight, God just opening that door, it allowed me to just take a step back and be like, there's no way God wouldn't have wanted me to walk through that door if he didn't just say, here is the door. I couldn't have imagined it any other way. So I took a few days to, just like gather that information and what all it took. And I ended up, of course, doing it, and I've just loved it.
Buying or selling a home in East Tennessee, you need someone that knows the market inside and out, and that's where I come in. I'm Courtney McGee, a top 100 real estate agent in the area with a proven track record of helping people buy their dream homes, sell their homes for top dollar, and even buy investment properties. Let's make your next move the right one. Give me a call at 865-567-6961 or visit my website at courtneymcgee.kw.com, and let's get started on your next move.
Dude, that's so cool. And like I feel like that's the thing, man, is like sometimes God will just do those things, man, just knock your socks off. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, oh my gosh, you are so real and you are so good.
Yeah.
Like you are so good. And so, Grant, like speaking to that more, I'm curious, like, what was your life like growing up in the faith? Like, did you grow up in the faith? Did you grow, or is it something you had like more of a turning point where you kind of found the Lord? Like, just talk me through just your relationship with Christ, kind of as a kid, and then growing up into now being in college.
Yeah. So as a child, grew up in church. Both of my parents are strong believers. Went to church every Sunday, every Wednesday night. If the church was open, my family was there. And I'm so grateful for that, because it's taught me so much consistency and discipline with, just showing up to church is the hardest part for most people, just getting them there. And that's when the good Lord does his works, is when you're in the building. So I would say from a young age, that's what I learned. But really the turning point of my faith started when I was in college. And I really started to grow a discipline of just waking up and meeting with God in the mornings and opening my Bible and reading, really diving in and learning what, all those childhood stories of, David, Noah, Moses, and how in depth all those go, but learning more about, my God that I choose to believe in every day, what he's like, how different he was in the New Testament compared to the Old Testament, and really just ultimately figuring out why I should lean into the Lord with all my heart and not turn to this world. Because as we all know, in college athletics, there's a lot of different routes you can go. And I've just, truly found that with guys like myself and Cade, I'm super close with Cade, and he's a great guy. And I just feel like there's no better place to love the Lord than college, because if you can do it in college with all these distractions, I'm not saying the rest of your life is going to be any much easier, but right now at a young age, like learning that mentally, learning that you cannot lean on anything else but the Lord for strength when it comes to whether you're going through injury or a tough time or being away from home, whatever it may be, like the Lord is your strength. And if you can rely on that at such a young age, you can, I kind of got a little excited right there, but just learning to, truly just dive into what I was taught at such a young age with my own, I guess decisions, and going to church on my own time, not because my family was waking up and going to church, but truly like developing a real relationship for myself with God is what I found most in college.
Because I think there's always, like, I feel like I hear this a lot, is like, there's like a moment where it's like, I have to choose to like have my faith and my own relationship with him that's like apart from like my family's relationship. Because it's like, you know, you can grow up in the church, you can go, but it's like, I need to make a decision that like, I'm going to follow you, Christ. Like, I'm going to follow you, Jesus. And, it's not just, I'm just culturally a Christian. Like, it's like, I am a Christian.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit of like in your Instagram bio, you say that you're a follower of Jesus Christ. Like, when you think of, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, what does that mean to you?
To me, it's who you are in every building, every environment, every conversation. So the way I'm talking to you right now is the same way that I would talk to my mother, my friends, my girlfriend, whoever it may be. I want to treat them the way Christ would want me to treat them. I pray for things like, I want to love my girlfriend the way that God has called me to love my girlfriend. I want to love her the way that Christ has set the example for us. Our relationship with friends to, I guess loved ones, family, that should be a resemblance of your relationship with Christ. Because and it goes for strangers also, like loving people the way God has called you to is truly the way that what the Bible is all about, what he's called us to do, who he's called us to be. And I think really finding that in every space you go to is ultimately being a follower of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I love that you speak to like love, because I feel like it's like that word right there like literally embodies who Jesus is. Like, he is love. And earlier you're kind of speaking to, how amazing it can be. Like, if you can find your faith and if you can walk with the Lord while you're in college, like when temptation's at its highest, it's like you're setting yourself up to be able to handle the adversities of this world. Can you speak a little bit to like the importance or like of like finding good community and having like good other brothers and sisters in Christ to lean on and to push you closer to him?
Yeah, I would say I've been in two different scenarios. In Martin at my first school that I attended, I was one of two guys who really knew of God and followed God. And I would say for the people that are in that boat with very few people around you, I would say as much time as you can carve out to spend with God in the morning, the Lord, time with the Lord in the Bible, whether your thing is worshiping God, praying with God, or ultimately spending time in his word, I would say you need to do that more as much as anything. Where your mind is at, what you fill your free time with. If you're a person that tends to struggle with following the crowd, or tends to be a person who kind of shells away and maybe is more isolated, just spending your time in your word, allowing your mind to just be refreshed and renewed constantly, I would say that is about as important as anything. And then for the people that are surrounded by what I would say our program, where we are constantly given opportunities to hear about Jesus, share Jesus, just hear the name of Jesus over and over again, the opportunities for us go as far as, okay, we were just in a power talk where the Lord was shared and maybe people feel a certain type of way. Now it's our job as believers on the team to go and have those conversations behind closed doors with people one-on-one, maybe one on, friend to friend. Maybe it's 3 or 4 of us sitting in a room like, hey, man, what did you get out of that? And hearing what people have to say and really diving into, their heart and how they took that. And also, like, before any of that happens, you got to really dive into, like, your care for them as a person so that you can have those conversations. And I feel like for me being here, that is, if not the reason, one of the biggest reasons I'm here, is just getting to know people outside of basketball practice, outside of the facility, so that I can ask them questions that truly matter ultimately for kingdom's sake. Being able to have conversations with assistant coaches that are 40 years older than me, or having conversations with people that are 2 or 3 years older than me or younger than me. So it's been a very unique situation, and I try to learn every day. And I think that when I ask myself questions about like what I could be doing more of, less of, if I was upset with how I handled the situation, if I missed an opportunity, I really feel like having a band of brothers around me allows me to remind and be able to go and do more things like that.
What does it look like to walk out your faith and shine the light of Christ on the court and as a basketball player? Because I feel like we have a lot of athletes who listen to this and they're like, man, I'm an athlete. Like I want to be able to like just witness well to my teammates. What encouragement would you give there?
I would say the best that you can do to be there for somebody is the way that I would say, like, let me take a step back. Jesus has called everyone to be a certain type of person to somebody. Yeah. And I think for a relationship with a fellow believer like Cade, I can be a little different with him because I know where his heart's at, where his mind's at. I also know Cade very well outside of our faith as a person. Now, for somebody, you don't know everybody on your team that well, and it's a little bit different in basketball. There's only 15 of us. In other sports, there can be, footballs. I mean, they got like 100 dudes or whatever. So it's really hard to get to know everybody. But I would say getting to know the person, it really impacts what you can say in the relationship of being on the court with them. But also, like, the court for basketball and football and so many other sports is such a small portion of like our time together. That's what the world sees. That's what the media sees. But I would say being able to truly, if like you could get the behind the scenes to like practices, man, like that's when the stuff gets gritty. Like when the coaches are pushing us to our limits and people get frustrated, maybe they're upset with play or whatever the case may be. And that's whenever you really are there for people. Like the games are what everybody sees, but at least here, practices are harder than the games. So we really have to be there for each other. And I would say, collectively, it'll be really easy for you to see from us whenever you talk to all of us, just how much it means to have each other, because we really do rely on each other for encouragement, picking each other up. Just honestly, like, I don't want to use the word like trauma bonding, but like we go through so much physical, like tough things together that like mentally like rewires your brain to be like, I know this dude's got my back. And that's the same thing I would say with like God is like when you go through tough times and you choose to rely on him, you're going to ultimately choose to trust him more and more and more for, whatever the situation might be in life.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more in depth on, because you talk about relying on the Lord through, some of the hard times. Has there been any moments in your life that you found that like, man, like this was a time when I like really felt like I needed to lean on him and like you were able to?
I would say the example of me entering the transfer portal earlier. So the Division II school that I was going to commit to is called Lee University. It's in my hometown, Cleveland. And I mentioned that hours prior to me getting my phone call from Tennessee, I was scheduled to commit to them. They didn't know that at the time. And when that opportunity hit me square in the face, I was like, what in the world? I couldn't describe it. And I would just say that God ultimately was wanting to see my heart reflect what I have been saying in prayer of like, God, I trust you. Lee, if I'm being honest, was not where I wanted to end up. But I ultimately had, like, I told God over and over again in prayer. I told God. I was speaking to God. I want to be where you want me to be. Yeah. And I think God just wanted me to buy into the fact that, okay, Grant, I'm going to let you believe that you need to be at Lee University for the next couple of days, and then let you feel assured by that because you've been resting in me. And then ultimately I'm gonna send something else your way, and you're gonna be a lot, not happier, but you're gonna be caught off guard, and it's gonna be a blessing that I've given you. And I think that is in a short story of what happened to me. God ultimately was like testing me to see where my heart really stood. And honestly, I'm thankful I was in the Word and I trusted God, because I really honestly would not rather be anywhere else.
You've got me thinking, because I feel like you're so right, though. Like, the Lord, like, he wants you to be in a place where it's like, Lord, your will over everything. And he wants you to, like, truly just submit to him in a way that's like, dude, I got it all under control. Yeah. And when he gets to that place, that's where, like, everything can just, like, come out of a blessing or a gift from him, rather than you saying, no, Lord, like, I'm going to do it my way. Mm-hmm. And because then when we put our hand on him, we put our grip on, it's like, he's like, if you want to do it your way, bro, like, I'll stay out of it, you know what I mean? But, like, if you let me work, like, I'll work. And so, like, I think that's such a great testament to, like, your story. It's like, I had to get to a place of surrender with the Lord, of like, Lord, is this where you want me? Like, I'm going to do it. And ultimately, he had other plans. Yeah. Can you speak more to, like, just, like, the way, just, like, the little moments that you see the Lord present, just through your time you've been at Tennessee, even just, like, you know, during a big game when you're just, like, looking up at the crowd and you're just like, wow, like, how am I, like, can you speak more to, like, those little moments you just see God when you're on the team?
I think for me, I just honestly, I never experienced the level of college basketball at Martin as I have here, the level of travel, of just, like, just small, like, I mean, just to walk you through a day, like, we get on a charter bus, we go to a chartered flight, we get there, there's food. We get off, there's food. We get in the charter bus, we go to the hotel, there's more food. We're staying at 5-star hotels everywhere. That's not what I envision college basketball being for me personally. It's what I have now, and I'm so thankful for it. But before, I always wanted to be that little jingle on CBS, like that March Madness, like little, you know, that everybody knows what it is. I'm not gonna act like I can, you know, replicate it right here, but that was my vision of college basketball, is like being in March Madness, playing those games, not necessarily like playing for people, but just like experiencing that. And I think that although it's not what I, you know, thought, like I'm not necessarily like out there for 30 minutes a night. I'm not typically in March Madness, I'm not going to be out there a full second, but knowing that like God has allowed me to experience that, I'm so thankful for that for so many different reasons. And they go so far beyond like the relationships we have. We're not going to remember the games, like we'll remember the outcome, but people like Cade and Jemiah, like those people are the guys that I'll call 15 years from now when we get back for anniversaries, like when we come back and celebrate our regular season championship. Like when we come back, like we're going to remember like how that person made us feel. And I think that that's my role on this team, is just like truly getting guys to understand that I care for them, not because of what they do on the court, but because of like who they are and what they are striving to be.
Yeah. And you speak to your role on the team, Grant. It's like, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to, you know, being on a team and they're like, man, I don't, you know, maybe I don't play that much, or, you know, but I'm a role player on the team, or I'm more on the bench all the time. Can you speak more to like, just keeping faith and like, and knowing your role and like doing your role to the best of your ability? Because I think that's something that like a lot of people can take away and like, you know, really apply to just their own lifestyle. And that can even apply outside of sports, you know, just knowing your place, and, you know, doing your job well.
Yeah. I think for me, being a walk-on, I'm not expected to play and produce on the court. So for me, my significance of like what I view as important has everything to do with my relationships. Like I know I'm not here to win games for the Tennessee basketball program. What I am here to do is glorify God, build relationships, like truly get to know people, like allow them to understand I care for them so deeply, not because of the name across their chest or on their back. It's because of who they are, what they do, like what their heart shows them that they are. And I feel like for me, my role, it goes so much farther beyond like even like I don't view it as any less or greater. And for people that are in that position, I don't remember exactly who said it, but it was be a star in your role until you win a Grammy, so to speak. I try to do that with a completely different mindset than I'd say most people, because I don't look at this role as a opportunity to lead to more. I'm really just like taking it day by day, and I'm like diving into relationships and really getting to know people. Like I said earlier and mentioned that, just so I can have conversations about the Lord with them. Like I had a conversation, and I don't care if you put this on or whatever, but like with a guy on our staff who is, I don't even know how much older he is than me, but it's probably like 40 years about the Lord. He was like, I'm just going to tell you, he was like, Grant, do you really believe like there's an afterlife? And I was like, absolutely. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, how can bad things happen to good people if there really is like a God? And that's such a real question. And I was like, well, to be honest with you, I can't answer why said thing happened, but I can tell you that what God has put inside of me, the Holy Spirit, since I've accepted that in my heart, has changed my life. And it's real, and I don't know how to tell you without it happening to you, but that feeling that I get, I know it's Him every single time. And there's no other way to describe the Holy Spirit other than it's in my heart, and He tells me what to do right from wrong. And if I go a little too far over the edge, He's going to pull me back by telling me in my heart, hey, you shouldn't do that, Grant, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know, I just went down a rabbit trail, but that was like a God moment for me. It kind of like awoke my spirit this past week, just being like, he was being serious too. Like he was really wanting to know, is that something you truly believe? He asked me, or is that something that you felt like, he said like the term brainwashed, like as a kid, like you just grew up in church, you know? He's like, is that something like you've really taken yourself and like run with, or is that something that, you kind of just like fell into the, trap of? And I was like, no, it's a me thing. Like I really believe there is a God, and He's real. And although you might not be able to see Him, feel Him, or touch Him, I promise you, I see and feel Him and touch Him in every aspect of my life, every single day.
What I'm hearing is like, you can always share and speak to what God's done in your life, and no one can take that from you. No one can take that from you. And there's power in your testimony. I almost think of it as our testimonies are prophecy in a lot of ways. It's like our testimonies tell the story of God's goodness and how He's just worked in our lives. And you are right, man, that conviction of like, oh man, I may have overstepped there a little bit, and like God will tell you, and you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I was gonna ask, so do you could you still see yourself coaching one day?
That's what I want to be.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You want to be a coach?
I want to be a coach. Yeah.
And so do you feel like your role right now, like, do you like just being on the team, like, do you like pay attention to like, oh my gosh, like, I like really trying to take things in also from the lens of coaching?
And all my teammates know I want to be a coach, and they at times will ask for advice. And not to say that I know everything, but I would say I have a generally pretty good perspective on what the coaches are thinking. Like, even if it's like, yo, why does coach want me to do that? And they'll ask me from like a unbiased perspective, and I'll be like, well, I feel like you need to do this or that, or whatever the case may be. Like yesterday during the game, we were just killing them on a certain coverage, and I just told our point guard, I was like, we need to keep going back to that. Like, there's no reason that we need to go away from it. It's like, get into this and, that sort of stuff. And I feel like from a basketball perspective, that is what I can provide on the court. Is I see the game as like a player, but not only like from the coaching side, because that is ultimately what I want to become. So I would say that, and if you ask the guys, like they call me Coach Grant all the time, at times in practice, I'll be like, yo, you need to get over here, blah, 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 because of this or that. And, I look at that, they tell me like, you're going to be a good coach. Like, and I have a struggle taking compliments at times. But for some reason, I'm able to hear them whenever they say it, because it'll come at a time that I'm not expecting it. It'll just be like in the middle of a day or during the locker room or wherever we may be. But I do want to be a coach one day.
What's one or two things that you feel like you've really learned coaching wise from Coach Rick Barnes?
Coach has been in it a long time. He's coached a lot of good players. He does some things that I never heard of. You ever heard of a 3-hour film session?
Sounds long.
That's about we probably get into those like 2 or 3 times a week. And from basketball, we are told by our team chaplain that we watch more film than the football team, and that's just unheard of for basketball. But Coach, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He is one of the most consistent people I've ever met from an aspect of, I don't know if he knows something that other coaches don't know when it comes to like game day legs, but he will run us out the gym for 3 straight days, and we will have Kentucky on the 4th, and he'll know that we'll be ready to go on game day because for some reason, I guess he watches us in warm-ups, and everybody's dunking as if we hadn't just been absolutely gassed the past 3 days in practice. But he, and what I mean by that is he's so hard, he's hard on us. That's the kind of the term, but he's a perfectionist, and he knows that if we feel confident in practice, we're going to have no other option but feel confident in the games. And from a preparation standpoint, I would say as professional as he gets. He's going to check all the boxes. He's going to make sure you're more than prepared for game time. And by the time that jump ball goes in the air, we're going to be the most confident team. So I would say for what I've learned from coaches that, every day is an opportunity to truly like dive in and get better. And there's no such thing as a day you're in the facility and you're not getting better.
I'm even thinking about that with the hard practices, long film sessions, plus the SEC is just literally a gauntlet this year.
Yeah.
Can you, like, I'm just curious, like, what's it like being in the SEC when it seems like you guys are playing like top 5 teams every week? It feels like.
Yeah. So for us, when we watch film, it's kind of funny. We just see like our name and we don't ever see the number. So we'll see like Tennessee versus Texas A&M. That was, I think, a 7-8 matchup. And then yesterday was Tennessee, Alabama. And we'll just be watching the film and we'll be like, what were they ranked again? What were we ranked? Like, we really don't even keep up with it. We just like, as good as we can do in that game is the goal. So, in the SEC this year, it's literally been like top 15 matchups every week. Like, there's not been a week where you don't play a ranked team. Yeah. And, of course, coming out on a lot of those outcomes, it gives you a sense of confidence of just like you said, the gauntlet. And we've had a few tough games where we've lost and where we weren't expected to win, and then games we were expected to win and we lost. And I think we've learned this year about ourselves. We've had a few guys that have stayed around and played a lot of minutes for coach, and then a lot of guys that are filling in to their roles that are ultimately what they are now. So the SEC, man, it's been unreal. It's like, God, the league is so talented. There's so many good coaches also. I think that's that goes without saying. But a lot of guys that will win a lot of games for a long time in the SEC right now.
All right, 2 more questions for you. One is, how do you feel like that schedule and like the SEC, how do you feel like that's preparing you guys for March and to go on like a deeper run than, the Elite Eight as of last year?
Yeah, I would say, we, like I mentioned before, from a preparation standpoint, last year we went to Maui and we played like literally 1 and 2 on back-to-back days. And, for this year's perspective, you go and you play at Auburn, obviously they were number 1, and then you come home and you play Alabama in like a 2-week stretch, and that's just to name two opponents. There's no way you can't feel prepared mentally when you're going against the best competition week in and week out. So I'd say our team is confident. Our guys who have been here are definitely hungry to get back. The guys that haven't really experienced it are hungry to get there. So I think it's been a healthy combination of the two for just this month, because it's going to be crazy.
That's cool, man. And one final question: if any of our viewers are watching this and they're feeling like, man, I'm interested in taking that next step in my faith. Like I want to pursue a relationship with Christ, but they're kind of like, I don't really know where to start, or like what encouragement would you give them to part with?
I would say that God is always seeking after you. it's truly up to you to seek after God. And the way I've described it is, if you're not tuned in on your radio station to the one God's on, you're going to mishear exactly what God has for you and your plans. So if you're not listening, or if you're choosing not to listen to what God's called you to do, you're going to miss the point of what God's been stirring up for a long time in your life. I would say that you are just, if you're not ignoring, you're not listening, you don't know what to do, could be a long list of other things. I would say that God is so powerful, and God will direct you and guide your life in ways you cannot ever imagine. But if you're not listening to God, you're never going to truly find him. And I think that as I've walked, I would say for the past 4 years, truly intimately and closely with God, I would say that the closer I am to him tends to be when I am submitting, God, what do you want from me? God, this is your body. This is not my own. God, fill me with your spirit. God, I pray that you increase as I decrease. And I would say that just go all in. You won't regret it. You will not regret going all in with God. And I couldn't be more sincere, or just, honestly, it's just the best decision you can make. Just go all in, and I promise you, you won't go the other way once you feel God's presence in you. And if you haven't experienced it, there's nothing better anyone can receive.
Amen. Well, what an amazing episode. I'm just so grateful for the opportunity that, the Walks had to be able to just hear these stories in faith, and just so thankful to these players, part of our March Madness series for the Walk podcast. So stay tuned, guys, for another episode with the Walk podcast. Tennessee, Grant Hurst, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Are you looking to buy or sell a home in East Tennessee? With a strong track record being in the top 100 agents, expert market knowledge, and a commitment to top-tier service, Courtney McGee is the realtor you want on your side. Whether it's finding the perfect home, securing the best deal, or making the process seamless, she works tirelessly for her clients. Ready to make a move? Call or text Courtney today at 865-567-6961 or visit CourtneyMcGee.kw.com to get started.